Hey friends! Welcome to the next episode of Conversations with Parents Who Write. Tonight I am going to be joined by my guest Linnea March. And Linnea left her job of 15 years ago as a Head Start teacher and an administrator in the fall of 2020. While at home with her two boys, ages 7 and 10, she started writing again. Being a stay-at-home writer has enabled Linnea to pursue her dream while still being around for her children's needs. The majority of her writing is contemporary romance with a flair for women's lit. She published the first book in her contemporary rock star romance series, Faultless Notion, in March 2022. She's currently writing the second book in the Prevalent Notion series, which is slated for release in October 2022. She is very busy with her books, I see, because she's also releasing in August a story she wrote over 7 years ago. Reckless Liar is the story of a young woman struggling after her high school sweetheart dies and her journey to find herself and love. It's the first book in her planned Small Town series, set in a fictionalized version of her hometown in the Pacific Northwest. Whew! That is a lot of writing, and I am excited to have a chance to talk about that. So, I'm going to bring Linnea into the show now.
Hi!
Hi!
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm a little exhausted. I had we had our 5th grade end of the year celebration before going off to middle school today. So I have colored hairspray in my hair and aching feet.
I completely empathize with that. So our plans changed because I was not supposed to be here today. I was supposed to have a different background, but my little guy would not stop coughing. So our plans changed, but then he was fine, of course. And so we were at the playground in the humidity for 3 solid hours, came home, rested for a few hours, and then we went to this outdoor brewery that's on Horse Ranch.
Ooh.
Yeah, so the kids can just run around and play, and I just sat there and watched and had a food truck sandwich.
Yes, yes.
So, yes. Yes, but
Great.
Usually Thursday nights Dad does bedtime, and Dad's not here. So I was like, I've got something I need to do at 8 o'clock, man. So shower, brush teeth, stories, please go to sleep. So fingers crossed.
Yes.
Fingers crossed I'm not going to see a little curly head pop. So, but anyway, I digress. You're here.
I'm here.
You're here. You made it.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So, and congratulations to your middle schooler.
Yes, yeah, it's a little bittersweet, but yeah.
That's your little one, right?
It's my oldest, actually. So
your elder, right?
Yep, it's my oldest. Yeah. Yeah, so he has a July birthday, so he's going off. He's gonna be 17 when he graduates high school, etc. So yeah, so he's not 11 yet, but he will be in, a week and a half or so.
Yeah, my eldest turned 7 yesterday. Yeah. So what?
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. They're growing up.
I know.
That's just crazy. Well, so again, we're both exhausted, so it's like, okay, I'm trying to get into this now.
Yeah.
So usually I just start off with I read your writer's bio for our people. I mentioned that you're located in the, how did you phrase it? The Pacific Northwest. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience about where you're from, about your family? You already said in our teaser that your little random fact is that you cannot blow bubblegum bubbles.
Yes, that's
right.
true. Yeah, I mean, I've lived in the Pacific Northwest, west of Seattle for basically my entire life, barring a 13-month stint where my husband and I actually went to high school together, and we started dating at the end of high school. And on after only dating for 5 months, we decided to move to Phoenix together so he could go to school, which my parents wholeheartedly endorsed, me leaving our small town of 11,000 people and moving to Phoenix letting their oldest daughter move to Phoenix at the age of 18, which, like, I cannot imagine what I would say if my child came to me and said that. But I mean, they love my husband. He's my, so they immediately trusted him. But yeah, we lived in Phoenix for about a year and a half or so. So he could go to school down there for a little bit, and then we moved right back up here because this is our area. This is just what we're used to. We're used to being by the water. We're used to, good seafood and rainy days, so so that's what we're used to. So yeah, both of us lived in the Pacific Northwest, west of Seattle, for pretty much our whole lives, and that's where we're raising our boys. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was funny. We because in our other conversation we had, we talked a little bit about Twilight, and and how I live east of Forks. I live east of Forks, so between, let's just say, Forks and Seattle. I live around there, but my family, actually, we recently bought a little piece of just land on the same island that Stephanie Meyer, the author of Twilight, also owns a home. We found out afterwards that she also owned a home there. Yeah. I don't know how often she's up here because she actually typically, I think she lives in Phoenix, and it's a very different area, and it's definitely not Forks. I'll tell you that. She does not live in Forks. It's a different piece of a different little island. But yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting little tidbit.
Yes.
Yeah.
You share an island with Stephanie Meyer.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to say that.
I mean, there are quite a few people who live on the island as well, but yeah.
That is awesome. I love that. And you said that your kids are 7 and 10.
Yes. I have 2 boys, 7 and 10.
Mom's a boys club right here too.
Yeah.
Yep. I've got 4 and 7. So okay, here is the first question that I love to start with. That is about writing.
Yeah.
And it's, why do you love writing? What is it about it that tells you this is something that you just have to do? It's a part of you.
I've always kind of made up stories in my head, thought about, different situations. Like I oftentimes I'll listen to music and I'll think of basically a plot line, a storyline around like different songs. I've always, just when I think of an emotion, I think about what would cause a person to feel those emotions, what would be a story around different emotions. And so it's always been something I've been interested in. Ever since I was a small child, I told stories. I honestly think it's a little hereditary. My dad is a big storyteller. Not that he writes things down, but he just is, he exaggerates things a lot. And I'm like, I think this might be hereditary. I think I might have gotten this from him, because I just, just taking a situation and kind of turning it a whole other narrative into, into a complete story, is just always something that I've done. I can't remember really a time when I didn't love books, didn't love reading, and didn't love writing. So I feel like it's just always kind of been a part of me. Whether or not I had the time to really commit to it is a whole other subject, but I think, for me, it's just always been a part of me.
Yeah. So I hated reading books when I was a kid. Hated it. And looking back at it, I think because it was like too hard for me in my younger years. My parents weren't big on reading books to me. I'm not trying to like throw them under the bus here. It just wasn't something that was a part of our family. But then I remember I was in 8th grade and the school librarian had suggested a book for me, and it was a mystery book. I, to this day, wish so much that I could remember this book because it was the first book that I truly enjoyed reading. And I was like, oh, this is what reading can be like. This is amazing. But I was a big Barbie gal. But it wasn't like, let's go shopping. It was these huge epic sagas. And it took me a long time to realize that I could transfer that to writing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, I wish I knew what that book was. I could picture the cover. It was like a teenage girl with glasses and the like sunglasses and an island reflecting in the glasses, and it was a mystery. If anybody is ever listening to this and they happen to know this book, you will be my hero. Side note. Like, I've tried Googling it. No idea. Anyway, so when did you start writing?
So I will say, like, as an adult started writing, because I wrote a little bit in, like, you know, junior high, high school, terrible poetry, you know, short stories, etc., things that should never see the light of day, very melodramatic stuff. But when it was actually a little bit after my husband and I got married, we actually started trying to have kids, and we struggled with that. We struggled with some infertility issues, and this is going to sound so funny because I just brought up Twilight, but it was around the same time Twilight came out, and I read the books and I saw the movies and I just fell in love with it. And then I was exposed to fan fiction. And I started writing some fan fiction based on the Twilight saga. Not great stuff, but it got me back into writing, and it got me remembering how much I loved writing, how it felt to just put all my emotions down on the paper. So the first story I wrote was actually about, you know, in the story it was, you know, Bella and Edward, but in the fan fiction story, but she's suffering from infertility, and she's going through some infertility issues, and I was able to put all my emotions into this story, which, you know, I don't know if I'll, you know, any piece of it will ever see the light of day, but it was just really, you know, cathartic to do that, and I just kind of got me back into writing, and from there, you know, I didn't do very well with the fan fiction, but it just got me back into writing, and so I was able to, you know, start creating my own stories with my own characters, and you know, and then here we are. So, you know, I just continue doing it and honing my craft, and you know, and as you know, as you said in my bio, I worked in early education for I worked in one spot for 15 years, and a couple years before then, you know, in high school, I was in education for a very long time, and I left in the middle of COVID, just to stay home with my boys because they were struggling with school. And while I was home with them, and you know, once they were done with their schoolwork, I didn't have as much going on. I started writing my own stories, and really focusing on my own stories. And you know, and once I started writing, I realized, you know, this is not half bad. I could do something with this. I could actually use this time that I was given to be home with my boys, and I could focus on this, which has always been my dream. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I've never really thought I could do it. I never really thought I had the time or, you know, the motivation or whatever it was, you know, that was holding me back before. I didn't have any excuses. It was now, you know, kind of now or never. If I was going to pursue it, it was going to be then. And, you know, and so here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Our 2 books in, and then a book you wrote 7 years ago. You're going to be in August. What?
Yes. Yeah. So the book I wrote in that I'm going to be releasing in August is actually one that I wrote while I was still working. And I didn't do a single thing with it. I wrote 98% of it. I didn't finish it. I wrote everything but like the last chapter and a half, and then I don't know what happened. I don't know where I got distracted. I didn't finish it. But it's very near and dear to my heart. And probably a little too much. Sometimes I worry about that, but it's very near and dear to my heart. And so the Faultless Notion that I released in March is the main character is a side character from the book I'm releasing in August. So I wrote the book, the Reckless Liar, I wrote about 7 years ago, and Eloise that's in Faultless Notion is a side character from Reckless Liar. She is in it. So when I started writing Faultless Notion, I already knew who Eloise from Faultless Notion was, because I already wrote her. I've been working on writing her for 7 years. So I knew her character very well already. So it's a little out of order. I probably should have maybe postponed and, first author mistakes, but I probably should have put Reckless Liar out first, but I was just, I was ready to put out Faultless Notion. So I did it. So Reckless Liar is it's with the editor now. And I'm hoping to, everything goes in according to my timeline. I should be out the first couple weeks in August. Yeah.
So 2 thoughts. One, don't worry about the order, because look at the MC and
That's true.
Nobody cares.
That's true.
You're fine. And then the second thought is, I just love the fact that you have this book that you sat on for 7 years, because one, I have a short story I've been sitting on for 7 years that I submitted to maybe 3 places, and it was one place every 4 years, or do the math, whatever. But so I was okay, I need to put a little more effort into that. But the other thing is, the first book that I ever wrote was in high school. And my mom read it, and she was like, oh my God, you actually wrote an entire book, and it's called Second Chances, and it's very dramatic. It's basically a walk to remember with from This Is Us, who I absolutely adore, and whose name is completely escaping me right now, but the mom from This Is Us.
Oh, Mandy Moore.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mandy Moore was in a walk to remember, basically has a terminal disease, and the high school football guy falls in love with her, and before she succumbs to her disease.
Yeah.
Anyway, basically Second Chances. And so yes, it's extremely dramatic, but it'll never see the light of day. Or if it does, it's look at where it started, folks. This was 14-year-old me or 15-year-old me writing a story. We all got to start somewhere.
Yes.
So, the only reason why I would ever see the light of day. But so when do you make time to write, busy mama?
So I'm lucky enough that my kids went back to school. They went back to school, and so I write while they're at school. It's gonna be a little trickier with the summer, but they're pretty understanding about, letting me write. And even when they were home with me, they let me write. Definitely a little more screen time than I'd like to admit, but when you're up against those deadlines. But yeah, I just, I'm not a fast writer. I'm not a everyday writer. I try to write at least 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. And I try, that's my goal. And if I reach that goal, great. And if life gets in the way, I try not to beat myself up too much. I signed up I got voluntold, I signed up for the PTA, and, I have other, we have sports and different events and stuff like that I'm trying to keep on top of as well. So, but yeah, that's, I just try to carve out a couple hours a day to focus on my writing. Well, honestly, that's not the hardest part for me, being a self-published author. The hardest part is the marketing, carving out the time for marketing. That's the part because that's what I'm not used to, the marketing. So for me, that's harder than, because writing, I love writing, but marketing, thinking of, Instagram, quotes to, for titles, and, what to put on Twitter and what graphics to use. That part is there's definitely a bigger learning curve on that for me. So yeah, so that's finding the time to do the marketing is a little bit harder because I think I procrastinate it because I don't like it. It's harder for me.
I have 2 recommendations for you for that.
Yes, please.
Rachel Miller has an amazing, it's $27. She has an amazing marketing strategy Facebook thing that I also apply for Instagram, but it's her set and forget social system.
Ooh.
And she walks you through how to set up, it could be either 100 days or 300 days of just basically how to figure out what to write. And she walks you through that. And so, yes, you want your stuff to focus on your books, but you also want to connect with your audience. And so I think that would still be applicable.
Mm-hmm.
I love her thing. And then the other thing is Jeff Walker's The Launch. Like, literally, the book is called Launch.
Okay.
Launch book. And he talks about how to launch your product. And I've watched his free, like, week-long workshop or masterclass. And he actually talks about how you can use that for launching your books to get people excited about that.
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
Those are my 2 recommendations. I
Thank
learned
you.
a lot from both of those people, and they were immensely helpful on just how to connect with people, because that's what it ultimately comes down to, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So two of those.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's see. I'm going to pick out another question from my list. Well, the book that you wrote 7 years ago, which would be when your little guy was a baby, how did you make time to write the original book that you got 98% of the way through?
I honestly am like, I don't know how I did that. I just wrote after work. I mean, and that book took me, a year and a half to write, I would say. Maybe an hour or 2 after the kids were asleep, I would do that. And also, I'd tell my husband, like, hey, I'd like to go to the coffee shop and, and write on weekends or something like that. So every now and then I would do that. In that book, actually, when I was going through it again and realizing, like, this is something I want to publish, I had an entire separate point of view that I completely cut out of the book. That was kind of told in like flashbacks. So I cut maybe 50,000 words from the manuscript, and from there I cut it even further. So, I mean, I cut a good chunk out of it before I sent it to the editor. I probably cut about 60 to 70,000 words before I sent it off. It was a, I don't know if you can see. It was just like, a dense book before I sent it off. I mean, in it, narratively it didn't make sense. Whoopsies. Yeah, so honestly, like, looking back, I'm like, how did I do that? I don't know. Yeah, I think just after they went to sleep, that was
honestly what you're saying here is you made it a priority.
Yeah.
So you schedule, that's one of the big things that I talk about, like, on my website. Social media and everything is about looking at your schedule, finding the holes in your schedule, and saying, okay, this is the time that I'm going to write. Because otherwise, you say you're going to do it later and you never do, right? Like, I know, okay, like, hey, my kid has TV time from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Awesome. That is my time to sit down and try to write. So not dishes, not cleaning the house. That stuff gets done. It always gets done somehow, some way. So I know, prioritize the writing.
Yeah.
But what inspires you to write? I mean, aside from music, maybe that is your answer, but anything else that
I mean, I think a lot of music, even, news stories, different, even some books. Like, I haven't really, I did write a story quite a long time ago. I don't know if I'll do anything with it or not, but it was kind of loosely based on Tessa de Urbavilles by Thomas Hardy. And it just, it just kind of, I really, after reading that book, I really loved the idea of, of a woman who, she makes a mistake at, in some point in her life, and that mistake is kind of held over her, and just, that the power dynamic that can occur, even, nowadays with women, in certain relationships, and how a mistake can come back to haunt you, and, which is a theme in, in Tessa de Urbavilles. And I kind of built just that idea, just that simple idea. I kind of built a story around it. Didn't finish that story. I couldn't even tell you where it is right now, but I vividly remember starting the story with that in mind, of, just kind of writing a story about like power dynamic and finding love after, with somebody, and hoping that they'll see the best in you. Just that kind of that concept. So yeah, different places. Yeah.
I agree with that. It's like curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's this idea that just plants, and then it can't keep pondering and thinking like, oh, what if this happened, or what if that happened? I wonder if that situation, and like it just starts to snowball into, oh, this is a character now. And,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I love the fact that we automatically go through a lot of these questions naturally. It was great. I love that. Like, more of a backup. Can you share something you learned about the writing process or the craft that was a game changer for you?
Oh goodness. Let me think here. I'm like trying to think. Yeah, there's like all sorts of things, and I'm trying to. I think the book. I read the book, and now I'm gonna forget the title. Romancing the Beat, which is a Save the Cat type writing guide, and but it's specific for romance novels, and that was a huge game changer for me, because it just talked about how in romance, which is the genre I write, you want it can be plot driven, but a lot of it needs to be character driven, and the motivation of the characters, and you need to make it very clear to the readers where the characters are at motivation wise in the beginning of the story versus the end of the story. And Gwen Hayes, the author, writes about how you need to, at the beginning of the story, they have their whole heart, which is whole, like a, Swiss cheese hole.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, they have whole heart, WHOLE. And how do you get from whole heart to whole heart? And that was a huge game changer to me. I actually, I read the book when I was in the middle of writing Faultless Notion, and I had a 5-day writing imposter syndrome panic attack, because I was like, oh my God, I didn't do any of that. How am I ever going to finish this story? But it was immensely helpful at the end, because I feel like I was able to show clear, where the characters were at. And so that was really big for me. I try to do, show, don't tell as much as possible. And I think that, the adage, you can't edit a blank page. So, sometimes you just have to sit down and write it. Even when you're like this, and I literally, like kind of having, writer's block, and just written like, I don't know what to write. This is crap. I don't know what I'm saying right now. And then, and then eventually your fingers will, your fingers and brain will connect, and you'll start typing out, the right thing. But, just you just have to sit down and write sometimes, and it can get tough. So those are the things that have helped me,
So I remember struggling with show, don't tell when I was in college. And then the best description that a professor of mine gave me, because I was like, are you supposed to show everything? Like, that's exhausting. And he really summed it up well when he explained, look, if a new character walks in the door and this person is a plumber, and being a plumber is absolutely 100% vital to their identity, and it is going to shape how this character is going to act, then when they walk in the door, you are going to be describing the tool belt and the way they walk and the clothing and how it hangs on them and all of that. If it doesn't matter, then say he's a plumber, right? And move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
That helps so much. Like, I don't need to describe down to, every detail in the mud on his boots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, nope. You just need to know he's a plumber. Let's move on. Like, yeah. So that was a big eye opener for me. I was like, oh, so much pressure off. You show what matters, right?
Yeah.
So, are you stuck on anything at the moment?
A little bit. So, I think every writer has their favorite part of writing, and while they're in the process, and some people, they love writing the beginning and the middle, and then they have their least favorite. I always get stuck at the like 65-75% mark. I'm sloughing through that right now, and so I'm like getting closer to the 85-ish, give or take. But it's just like, I know, I have my story outlined. I know where I want these characters to go, but just like getting them there, I think I just lose like my motivation, because I'm like, oh my God, why am I not done with this yet? So I can write the beginning of a book so easily. I can, pound out 15,000 words for the beginning of the book, and it's so simple and so easy for me. And I can do the end of the book. I could write the beginning and end like so easily. It just flows for me. And then I get to like the middle, and I'm just like, ugh. It's like, Sisyphus.
That's like,
poor.
That's like, I want to deal with this chapter right now. So they on a date next chapter.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with that right now. That's what's gonna happen.
Yes. Yeah. That's definitely my hardest part right now.
I empathize with that. I finally started getting back into fiction, and I'm excited about the story that I want to write about. And I started the first chapter, and then I finished, and I was like, okay, good. I hit a good word count, and I looked at it, and I went, I don't like this at all. So I went to bed, and I thought about it, and I was like, it's starting too early. I was like, okay, I have to move her forward like 10 minutes in time, and that'll be better. But I wrote it, and then I could see it, like, okay, it's not going where I want it to. Marry for a bit, come back. Okay, great. Now I know what I want to do next. So.
Yeah.
Here is, okay. Oh, no, you know what? You mentioned the imposter thought monsters. What did you say? Imposter syndrome. So many of us deal with imposter syndrome. How do you tackle it?
Goodness. So, I think sometimes I'll, kind of a little self-absorbed, but I'll read my, good reviews. I'll read the, the nice comments. And honestly, sometimes I'll look up my favorite books on Amazon, books that I absolutely love, that I think are just beautifully written, and I'll read the 1-star reviews for those. Because there are terrible reviews for Jane Austen. There are terrible reviews for Shakespeare. Tessa Bailey, Christina Lauren, like the authors that I really love, Alicia Rye, like there's terrible reviews for, Julia Quinn, who just came out with the Bridgerton series. There are people who don't like their writing, and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. There's gonna be people, who might not like it, and I just have to keep doing it, because, so I think, that's part of it. Maybe just putting it down or moving on to the next area. And, I also like to think about Amy Poehler in Parks and Rec, that she makes a couple quotes about, just having the audacity or, the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's, that's her thing, that she has that whole line about like, I can do anything. I'm a, a senator. I'm a white senator or something like that. Like just Leslie Knope. I think of like Leslie Knope. What would Leslie Knope do in this situation? Because I think she's a great character for just, taking charge of your own life and being confident in yourself. I really like her character. So I think of her, there's a scene where she calls and leaves herself a voicemail to listen to later. That I just love, hi Leslie, it's Leslie, just hang in there and I love you. Like, trying to think of that, like I'll get through it, and it's, so yeah.
I love Leslie also. She's a great character. She cracked me up. To anybody who hasn't watched Park and Rec, I didn't like the first season. It got amazing in season 2.
100%.
100%. I don't know what happened, but season 2 was like, oh, this is phenomenal.
Yes.
That is brilliant about looking at the bad reviews for other authors. Utterly brilliant, really, because it's true. Not everybody out there is your audience, and the people who aren't your audience, don't waste your time with them. Focus on the people who are your audience, you know? Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yeah. I wish I could take credit for it. That's not something I read that somewhere, and I thought that is a really great idea. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna think of that, because it's. I wish I could take credit for thinking of that on my own, but I didn't. But I use it all the time. I do.
Thank you for passing it on.
Yeah.
Way to pay it forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Oh, see, look, we already covered a lot of these. Oh, I love asking this one. Do you feel writing has helped you to be a better parent, and how so?
Oh goodness. I do think it has, just because I think, I'm going to butcher this quote. I'm going to totally butcher this quote, but there's this Cahill Gibran quote about how children don't come from us, they come through us. And they're not, so they're, like we grow our babies and everything, but they're not us. They're separate entities, and they have separate emotions, and they have separate feelings. And I think just being an author, being able to get into the headspace of other people, it gives me an opportunity, because my kids are, they react differently to different situations than I would maybe. And it just kind of gives me an opportunity to take a step back and be like, okay, I know I wouldn't do that, but they are, and they are processing how they're feeling in this way, because they're their own person, and that's how they do it. And I think just being an author, you're constantly doing that. You're constantly going in the headspace of somebody else. How would they react to this situation? And they can't always react the way that you would as the author, because that would be really boring if all your characters reacted the same way. So I think that's probably the biggest way that I think being an author has probably helped me as a parent, is just being able to get outside my own head and empathize with my children in that way.
That is one of my all-time favorite things about reading books and writing, is that I felt like it has enabled me over the years to be able to see life through so many different perspectives. And yeah, what better way to have empathy and understanding than being able to walk in somebody else's shoes, right? Yeah. That was great. Thank you. Here's a somewhat funny question. Do you find it's harder to get your butt in your seat to start writing, or do you find it harder to pull yourself away from your writing?
Get my butt in the seat. That's always harder, because mostly because I write from home most of the time, and when I'm home, there's always something else to be done. Oh, I should probably start another load of laundry. Oh, do I need to sweep the floor? Oh, so-and-so needs, something's done in their room. And so it's easier to get distracted. And so oftentimes when I need to reset, I'll have to leave and maybe go to a coffee shop or something like that, just so I can reset my brain, after a long weekend or something like that, where I haven't written for a while. I'll have to kind of reset my writing brain And so I'll have to go away from my house to get my butt, because there's nothing like, once I'm at a coffee shop, I have to write. That's the whole point of me spending, you know, $5-7 on an overpriced latte, you know, to sit in their shop, was for me to do this. So I have to. So it's definitely getting my butt in the chair is my biggest issue.
Yes. Yeah, that was my longest issue for 7 years. And then finally I realized how empty I felt inside from doing nothing for myself. And that was when I had to say to myself, okay, their screen time is my writing time. And I would look at the pile of dishes in the sink and I would say, nope, I can get done later. Like, I cannot do those dishes until I sit down and write. Because how many times we say the opposite?
Yeah.
No, I have to, right? And I was like,
yeah,
nope, swap. Cannot do those dishes until I sit down and write for at least a half hour. So, and that has helped.
I will say, I think, I don't know, I don't know if she's on other social medias, but one thing that's helped me is and this isn't really with writing, it's more with like stuff around the house, but on TikTok, there's a user named Domestic Blisters, and she talks about, she does a lot of like house cleaning, you know, mental health, house cleaning videos, but she talks about how having a clean house, like a tidy house, is a morally neutral concept. And you are not a better person because your house is clean, and you are not a worse person if your house is dirty. It is morally neutral. And if there is another, like if there's another reason this stuff isn't getting done, you need to address those reasons. But you yourself, there's not something wrong with you if your sink is full of dishes. It is morally neutral. It's not good or bad. Yeah, and I mean, that was like a game changer for me. It was a game changer, because sometimes it can feel so overwhelming, and like, and then the guilt of like, oh my gosh, my table's full of end of your paperwork, and my sink is full of dishes, and I have 5 loads of laundry that need to be folded, and like I'm failing, and it can just be, and then you just want to shut down, and which absolutely can affect the creative process if your headspace is not there, you know, because you're worried about, you know, all this other stuff. But that, it was a game changer for me, just thinking this is morally neutral. Like, there's nothing wrong with me as a person if these chores don't get done right now. I'm not less of a person, I'm not less of a mom if these things don't get done right now. So that was a game changer. So Domestic Blisters is just, she's great, and she's a mental health professional too. So like, it's coming from like a more clinical setting, like clinical mindset. It's not just her saying it. She really does, like, I believe she's a counselor for her work. So yeah.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic. Another one that I love that my coach has been teaching us this past year is I have an abundance of time, because I would get so overwhelmed with, I don't have enough time, I can't fit everything in, I've got all these things that I have to do. And they were like, the minute you tell yourself, I have an abundance of time, I can say, oh, well, because I have an abundance of time, I can prioritize my writing, and I will still have time to get the dishes done and get dinner made. Like, it takes that pressure off, and then I can think more about like, okay, how can I just prioritize my stuff? And oh, the stress relief that created just by that swap, or thought swap, was like, oh, I can breathe. I can breathe throughout my day rather than panicking through it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. An abundance of time. I like that.
Yeah. Abundance of time. We have 1,400 minutes in a day. So it's quite a lot. An abundance of time. Where are your books published?
So my ebooks are exclusive. They're on Kindle Unlimited, so they're exclusive to Amazon right now. But I do have paperbacks on Amazon, and then as well as Barnes and Noble, and I believe that's it for the paperbacks.
Okay.
And I have hardbacks on Amazon too, but I understand when I'm not in love with the formatting of the hardcover on Amazon. I haven't quite figured that out yet. I need to tweak that a little bit, but the paperback I think is lovely. So yeah, so Amazon and as well as Barnes and Noble. And I'm working on getting, I really want to get my books into my local bookstore. We actually, where I live, in the town I live in, Paulsbo, has quite a few really, really beautiful bookstores. So I'm gonna go in eventually and try to get my books in there. So some of the local indies, yes, I would love to get some of the local indies
That would be great.
as well.
Support
Yes.
authors. Yes, support local authors.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you self-published, but you have an
Mm-hmm.
editor. So was it hybrid publishing, or you did it like? Just
Oh,
curious.
so I hired an editor. So I have an editor that I hired. Yeah, Doug. Yeah, so I hired an editor that I worked with before to edit this book around. So she's doing edits now, and she's been great. My editor Heather's been really great. So
as an editor, I love to hear that, because editors are not supposed to be brutal. Honest, yes, but not
mm-hmm.
brutal. And our job is to help you shine. Like, you made the boz.
Mm-hmm.
It might be covered in a bit of muck and dirt, and the editor goes in and cleans that off, but you made the boz. And we'll point out, like, hey, there's a crack in here. What do you think you can fill it with? This is what, like, is this what you meant?
Mm-hmm.
Like, were you trying to say this? But clarity. But we are meant to help you guys,
Mm-hmm.
not hurt. I always feel like I have to say that, because, like, good editors are awesome. And
mm-hmm.
I just don't want people to have a bad experience with an editor and to get scared away.
Yeah.
So, but I'm glad that you have a great experience with that.
Yeah.
So, have you tried to nurture a love of reading or writing for your kids?
Definitely I have. I mean, we read together a lot. You know, we're big readers. I always make them, whether they like it or not, take a book camping. Whenever we go on a camping trip, they always have to take some books with them. And they always end up reading them. Like, they're like, I'm not going to read. I'm going to be running around. I'm like, well, we live in Washington State, so it's going to rain. It's always going to rain. In August, it rains. Like, it always rains on camping trips. Like, it's going to happen. So you're going to have a time that you're just going to have some downtime, bring a book. So I think I definitely try. My youngest, actually, he started, wanting me to read the Harry Potter books to him. And so I started, but he kept wanting them to go on. So I'm like, okay, sweetie, I can't be in here. So I've been just playing the audiobook. He's been listening to the audiobooks on his tablet when he goes to bed at night. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you stopped? Because my 7-year-old, well, I started reading him Harry Potter when he was 6, and we went through books 1 through 3, and then he begged for more, and I was like, nope, we're gonna have to stop here. When you're older, you can move on.
Yeah, but I know, I was a little torn. I think after book 4, it's like halfway through book 4, I'm like, oh, it's getting dark. It gets dark, book 3 is definitely the innocence trio. And then it does get darker. Yeah, up until I don't let them watch the movies like past. I let them watch movie 4, but it's like after that it's just like every movie there's like, so it's a lot. But we haven't gotten to that yet. So he's still working his way through. I think the second one. The second one's his favorite anyway. He's listened to it a few times. So, he loves the Chamber of Secrets.
When he was 6, he was very afraid of Sirius Black.
Oh.
He was and I was like, dude, he's so awesome. I love him. I don't want to spoil the book, but like he was starting to get really scared, and so I just had to be like, it's okay, Sirius Black is awesome, and he's one of my favorite characters, and you're gonna love him. Like, Mama, are we getting to the part with Sirius Black? Is he gonna be there soon? And I was like, it's okay, he's awesome. But like, and so I was like, you know what, I didn't go on to 4 because I couldn't make Voldemort real for him.
Yeah,
like I had to keep it where Voldemort is still not quite he's not real, right? So that's yeah. It wasn't more about Cedric Diggory I was worrying about. It was the fear of
yeah.
real.
I mean, that is, the big bad. So, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Kids, they're so darn cute.
Yeah.
So we are coming to the end of our show. Oh, we went a little bit. I always go long on these. I'm so sorry. Last question.
Yes.
What are your favorite books?
Oh, goodness. I have so many. I mean, it just depends on the genre. So I really love, I love East of Eden by John Steinbeck, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I'm a really big Christina Lauren fan. So it's a writing duo. They have, I think, 28 books out, but really fun romance books. Goodness. Oh, gosh, I'm trying to think. I really like The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I actually wanted to name my younger son Tristan after Stardust, and my husband's like, no, that's not gonna work. And we have a friend that their son's name is Tristan, so it's like, okay, I suppose.
I didn't know it was a book because I
Stardust,
love the movie.
Yeah, it's a really good book. It's a really good book. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have that's definitely going on my
Yeah.
list because like I've owned that. It was one of the first digital movies that I owned, and I would watch just over and over and over again. Tristan's so adorable.
He is, yeah.
They were all amazing.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I could go on and on. I have all sorts of books from all sorts of genre. You give me a genre, and I could give you a favorite book. So, yeah.
I'm the same way too. My book collection is very, very wide. Like it's a big breadth of books. Yeah, you know what I was telling other people? I might have mentioned this on the show before, so I feel bad because I always try to mention a different book that I love. I can't remember if I mentioned already. Someone said Kafka on the Shore by Murakami.
Oh, okay.
Magical realism. Oh, I didn't mention this episode. Gosh darn. Okay. Well, anyway, but I still really love that book. Like I'm going to be reading it again soon because I was thinking about how much I loved it. Kite Runner was phenomenal. Depressing as all heck, but phenomenal. Secret Life of Bees I really loved. Where the Heart Is. So sweet.
Oh, yes.
I love Natalie Portman. I loved the movie. Love the book also.
Yeah.
They're just Dowager Bride. There are so many books that I could recommend. But anyway, those are some of my favorites. And what are some of your kids' favorite books from whatever?
Let's see. So my 10-year-old, he really loves the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. I was very excited about this when he started reading them. He really enjoys the Sideways Stories from Wayside School.
I don't know that.
It's a really fun series. It's about this school that was supposed to be built long ways, but it's built up, and so it's really tall, and all these weird things happen. And like in the first chapter, like the substitute teacher gets turned into an apple or something like that. It's very silly, but they're super fun, cute books. I read them. I remember reading them when I was a kid. So when he got into them, I was like, oh yes. So Diary of a Wimpy Kid, like Captain Underpants books, they love those. I'm trying to think what other ones. My younger one, basically, like anything my older one reads, my younger one wants to read as well, so he's just kind of following along right now. Dogman, the Dogman graphic novels, they really like those. They both really like those. I mean, we have all the Harry Potter books, so they're there. They just haven't gotten around to reading them. So a lot of those books. They're big rereaders, especially my 10-year-old. I'm like, you should try something new. And he's like, why would I want to? And I'm like, well, and it's like one of those things, like I want to foster their love of reading, but I also, I don't want to, I want them to, branch out a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I feel, where do you draw the line? And like, no, read a new book, please.
Whereas I can't get my 7-year-old to reread, because I read to him Harry Potter 1 through 3, which he loved. He would cuddle up with me and we would read them. But I was like, oh, do you want to reread Harry Potter 1? And he was like, no, I read it, Mama. Oh, that hurt. That hurt. That was a shot to the heart. So, but anyway, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Pat, is there anything else that you would like to add for our people who are watching? All of your social media links are in the description, so you're good to go there. But is there anything else that you wanna put out there?
Oh goodness. Why wasn't I expecting that question? I don't think so. I mean, I think I'm crossing my fingers, hoping. I'd like to really have 4 books released this year. So Reckless Liar is coming out in August. I'd like to get the sequel to Faultless Notion out by October. And then I have a holiday novella that I started working on last Christmas, and then when it wasn't Christmas anymore, wasn't the holidays anymore, I was like, oh, this feels a little weird writing this in January. I don't know how so I stopped writing it. So I'd like to finish that, and I'd like to get it out for the holiday season. And it's kind of going to be a little bit of a tie-in with Reckless Liar. So my Reckless Liar and a lot of the books that I'm going to be writing from here on out are going to be set in a fictionalized version of my hometown. In Ridgewood is the town name. So the holiday novellas will be set in Ridgewood as well. So that's my goal. So keep an eye out. Hopefully I can get 4 books out this year.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. Gosh, I hope for the day when I can say that. Woo! But you know what? I'm also not beating myself up right now, because this is going to be my last note. Our kids are little for such a short period of time, and I'm already starting to get more time in my schedule now. And come September, my little guy is going to be in preschool Monday through Friday mornings, and that alone is going to open up my schedule even more. So I'm not trying to drive myself crazy. I'm plucking along at things here and there when I can, but when my schedule opens up, then I will start scheduling more robust writing time.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but I'm also not gonna beat myself up for not getting out 4 books this year. So I am on my own journey, on my own road. There is nobody ahead of me. There is nobody behind me. And so I do what I can do. I make now, but I'll be able to make more time later, and that's okay.
I love it. That's wonderful. Wonderful way to look at it. Yes.
Mindset, man.
Yes.
Makes a difference. Well, thank you again. I had so much fun. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Get some sleep.
Bye.
Bye.